Alright, in this episode I'm going to be talking a little bit about a couple things that I wrote down in my show notes. And this has been an absolute stress with all technical difficulties that I've been having. So literally even just recording this interlude and the opening introduction right now, I even occurred some problems. So having the strong emphasis on directing you guys towards my Cash App is going to be the main focus here that I want to focus on. You can find my cash tag on my X and all links of my social media available at my Linktree, available in the description. This episode is basically a lot about balancing your consumption of media with your content creating. And I want to emphasize the importance behind that so that you don't run into the same problems. Also, a couple of the things that I had go down with my recent interviews, and then the whole thing basically went off into the blackness and darkness to be lost forever. And instead of getting too frustrated and seeking out like a new one and adding one in to fill its place, I wrote a paragraph of like how grateful that I was to actually even just sit and talk with these guys for an hour about music. There's also influences discussed in here, where I can go into a little bit about the influences that I have, and then sounding like your influences, or making sure you maintain and preserve your own original sound quality of your own music, as I'm currently speaking under the context of other up-and-coming podcasters and musicians. I talk a little bit about open mics. Some of the documentaries I've been watching, birthdays, and I'm featuring a couple tracks from my most recent project, Pitiful and the double EP, Torturous Divide. So let's open up with that, and you can check it out here. You're going to hear The Abyss, and then we're going to close off with Doom. I am Mickey GemInEye, this is the Vault of Doom podcast. Vault of Doom podcast. just heard The Abyss, one of the tracks off of my recent release on the new project Pitiful Spawn, and I am going to just cut into the episode here, straight to it. Let's get straight to it. I've got some notes this time. First thing I want to acknowledge is that I did a couple podcasts recently with a few gentlemen that are doing their own projects right now and did not have the opportunity to check the mic while I was recording, so the whole podcast went somewhere drifting off into the darkness, and now I have no record of the whole thing happening at all. So evidently, or apparently, that's one of the side effects of making this kind of music. Sometimes you get burnt by this sort of thing. So having no microphone check done on these shows and then have the whole thing go was extremely frustrating. And instead of trying to reach out to them again and have them do another one, as I already took up some of their time, and then instead of searching for some more new ones to try to go ahead and do another new one, I just simply wrote a little something. And then in absence of these bands, I feel eternally grateful to have had a moment to speak to these fine young gentlemen for a good chunk of time, speaking on things from the beginning stages of the black metal obsession to the forming of the bands these artists play in. I was also very short and concise as possible with my side banter, personal sentiments, and tried keeping it as non-solabsostic as I could, as it's been my first guest on the show in a year. It was an entirely frustrating experience and a test to my patience, as well as a disappointment and possibly blackball-inducing letdown on these artists to learn their conversations with me were not broadcasted to an audience as promised. Also, the previous guests on the show, however, I did not have as well put together of a response to such occurrences as I do now, so the names won't be mentioned, but I will promise to try and get the other people on here, as well as many, many more new ones, as I can make the guarantee that I will continue trying, but I cannot make the guarantee that I will have any other new guests on here soon. So, that said, I'm really, just like I said, really grateful to have had the chat with these guys, talking to them about all the stuff that I mentioned, forming the band, getting started on being into this kind of music, and then just seeing the enthusiasm and then having them share their experiences with me. It was really great. So having had the opportunity, that was really good. But unfortunately, the show won't be posted. So next time I have a guest on the show, I'll have the name of the project or the artist, depending on how they want it to be displayed, on there, and the video title. So it'll be pretty awesome. But like I said, I can guarantee that I'll continue trying. I just can't guarantee that I'll have no technical difficulties or malfunctions next time. So moving on then, I have some more notes here on this episode. I want to try to fit as many of these things as I can before I share another track with you from the most recent EP drop from my latest project, my current running project. Before I get into the notes though, I just want to talk about some stuff off the fly and what's been going on with me and my project. I'm recording some stuff and I'm putting together some stuff, and I'm thinking of releasing it under the same project name, but it has a concept. It has like a fully formed, fully mature theme ready to go in terms of how the story is to be told through this music, and it's basically the story of it's the same concept as with a novel that I wrote, where I wrote this novel called The Wizard, and it's about a kid that just wanders off into like a fairy land where there's elves and leprechauns and all this stuff, and then he's there to avenge the wrongdoing that his father had bestowed upon him for not being there. So it's basically about a bastard child that goes to find his way and vengeance. And it's put together through the course of 3 albums. The elements that I'm using in this one are turning out to be just the same elements as used in my most recent releases, but it's put together much more differently and much better. I mean, I literally sat there putting the mixing and mastering on these latest releases, like, just totally zoned in. I wasn't dialed in at all, so the timing's all off. Everything's just kind of thrown in there, and I spent all this time sitting there doing the mixing and mastering. Truth be told, it sounds like crap, but I'm still somehow weirdly satisfied and happy with it. So putting out this stuff that I'm working on now is going to be a great deal of time. I'm going to be spending the whole rest of the season here and the rest of the year doing the sharing, adding tags, adding the proper descriptions, checking and rechecking for typos. I'm still finding typos in some of my recent stuff too. So these are things for other artists to consider, as I have to speak under that context for now, that what I can say until I get more comfortable and kind of dialed in, what I can say is going to be under the context that I'm helping provide some sort of pro tips, so to speak, for the other artists, up and coming artists trying to put out some new stuff and make new things. Now, I recently was watching a documentary, A Wandering Path. It's about the Gilead Records down to Kentucky that has black metal, noise rock, and hardcore punk. And they have artists on there that I found through Bandcamp Metal Show, a podcast that's far more well put together than mine. And they have featured Panopticon from Kentucky, and then he's featured in the documentary. Anyway, I watched this documentary and really enjoyed the hell out of it. It was really good, really good movie, really good documentary. And then the guy, that same day, I was having trouble doing some recording on my falsetto. I was having some trouble with my high-pitched scream. And then I hear him saying something that I already knew and was using to keep my falsetto. And that is to be revealed upon once you watch the documentary, A Wandering Path. But it was just really helpful as I'm moving in on the final recordings that I have on this current set for now. And then I needed that. I needed this really bad. So we'll see how it comes out. I already know, though, there's no anticipation needed. I already know it's going to come out good. As that little tip of advice there is just like stuff that, what if I missed that? You know, what if I had missed the movie? What if I hadn't come across the documentary at all and come across this pro tip that I needed, a friendly reminder of how to do this stuff right? And it's like God, it's like you just really can't rely on anything nowadays. Everything is so uncertain nowadays. It's insane. That's a good place to be, especially when you're making this kind of music, and then you don't need to lean on anything. You can just literally lean on the unknown and rely on that solely. Anyway, he made a reference to that tip on how to do properly the falsetto and to Lord of the Rings. And speaking of which, I hate to do a little bit of self-marketing, but I have to. It's a little bit over 2 or 3 weeks now, I just released a Tolkien song. There's a whole song book written by Tolkien. I did a Irish pennywhistle guitar parts and vocals with the visuals all there for you, and the lyrics and the drawings and all that stuff. And somebody requested it on X, so I shared it with them. I share it quite regularly, once a week or once every 2 weeks on my X and on my threads, all of which you can find and available on my Linktree in the description. Now, let's move on to a couple other things off the notes that I do have and Spotify versions currently not synced, but syncing them as much as I can. I mean, they are synced, but I need the YouTube to start looking like visual for you guys, so you can see any kind of navigation or see any of the visuals with the microphone and have that go down. So getting those synced is going to be good. You know, you can just look at, on the YouTube version, you can just look at the sound waves pulsating from the image of a symbol of a microphone, and it makes it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So having the Spotify going up and good, that's where all your show notes are going to be. I try to have them synced in terms of the description, but everything's pretty much fully synced. Once all is said and done, all you're going to be seeing is regular Twitch streams. I just did a Twitch stream on my poetry performance, and you're going to be seeing this podcast as well. So moving on down the line here, as I think I might get actually cut in here to the closing song. As I say, I'm going to close off the episode with another track from the same EP. And before I get there, I'm going to try to work through all these notes as best I can. I want to make this episode the main premise being about influences, and there are a lot to be said about that as of late, as I have my own influences. Everybody has their own influences, and the concern might draw in at some point in time on how similar do you sound to your influence. That's one concern. That's one aspect of concern right there, is why would I sound like my influences? Well, that's a given that I'm going to sound like my influences a little bit, and then with a little bit of original flavor added in. So if anybody ever makes comments that might scar you for life or something like that, where they say that you sound like this, or they say that your favorite artist sounds like this, or another artist sounds like something else, it's no big deal. That's just simply being at the mercy of the influences. It doesn't bother me that much anymore, but it used to. And there's a lot to take into consideration, that you don't necessarily want to sound like your influences or hang on to every word, but take it for a grain of salt. You know, I mean, your influences are important to control and maintain. You want to make sure you're not too heavily influenced by other artists, and as in example, not consuming too much of other artists' music. But nobody's perfect here. We're not machines. We might be musicians, but we're still human. So, like, considering how much of the other artists' music that you do consume, just heed my words that it does impact you more than you might know. So I think that's technically the main topic of the episode, and not that I want to stick around there too long. So moving into that's current, that's past, present, here's future. Interviews and being interviewed, that's an important thing to also consider too. Like the interviews that I have done, and then the interviewing that has been done to me, is a little bit of scales to balance. There's a little bit of the scales to balance on that, as me interviewing the artist and then being interviewed by other artists is important. I might not find myself being interviewed by anybody anytime soon, but I certainly will find myself interviewing other artists. As I'm interested in giving the exposure, as I'm interested in getting the learning, it's a learning experience for myself as well, and having the whole experience in and of itself just is what I want to spend my time doing. So being interviewed is something I should look into, and maybe finding a way to do that at some point in time if the opportunity arises. But there's not much of a need when I'm doing this show, so I enjoy what I got going on now, and I'm fine with just leaving it there. So moving on along here, I've been really itching to establish this third season premiere. So now that I have all these show notes here cropped up on today's episode's show notes, once they're out of the way, I can get back into the way that I want, the direction that I had actually aimed at going towards on this season, this third season here. And as I mentioned it on the premiere episode, that it is to be about occult, paranormal, supernatural, spiritual, and psychedelic experiences. I have to repeat that. Occult, paranormal, supernatural, spiritual, and psychedelic experiences is what I'm going to be talking about on this episode. And some of it's going to be pretty crazy, pretty interesting. It's going to have a little bit of life stories in it. You might have some stuff to say about it. You might want to share it with your friends. You might want to share your experiences with me. I'll probably respond in the comments below for sure, considering I need to. And I need to just like keep myself interested in life in general, as the when the dread and the darkness just drags on, you kind of need an other. Once I get rid of my I want to teach people about the occult bug, once I get that I want to teach people about the occult bug out of me, which should be good after this episode here, should be ready to go. But there's just teaching and learning works so differently here in 2024. So I don't have much of an interest in doing that anymore. So once that's out of the way, talking about the stuff should be a breeze. Should be a piece of cake, bowl of cherries. As for the other notes that I have here, I think that my media consumption has totally gotten out of control recently. I've been watching too many movies, listening to too many podcasts, listening to too much music. Getting that under control is big on me, and I just mentioned this a little bit ago, but it's really big on me to have this stuff under control. So having the way that my stuff starts to come out after that, I have like a certain like window of time before it catches up to me, all the media I've been consuming. But I have also been battling it as well by sharing all of it on my social medias. The things I watch and listen to are available on my social medias, where you can check it out yourself if you want to see what I'm watching. Working on these creative projects has me totally consumed, so I'm not interested in doing much busking. But I did happen to do a little bit of a sound sync at a potential busking spot recently, and I found that the equipment I'm working with is totally unqualified for the job. So I'm going to be needing to redirect you guys again towards my Linktree and cash tag, where the money that you send is going to help keep this show going, keep the quality up, as I certainly will not be running out of things to say anytime soon. In final closing of the first part of the show here, before we cut to the interlude music, I'll have to freaking get you guys to check out my shorts here that I've recently tagged and have everything properly ready and posted up, as I've been addicted to making shorts. I have all kinds of varieties of shorts. There's some comedy shorts, there's some yoga shorts, there's some teaching you how to do singing, guitar riffs, songwriting, audio engineering, and of course the only consistent ones that will be coming out, cover songs. So let me cut into the interlude music here while I bust out my trusty rusty interlude music. Wait, I think I just said that twice. Let me cut into the interlude music while I bust into my trusty rusty show notes and see what else I have in my bag of tricks for you guys. Vault of Doom podcast. Alright, just to brush over one of the things I was just talking about and having the creating versus consuming, just consider that. Like, if we're going to create music or create content, and then you are consuming content as well, that it's slightly balanced in some way, or that you're at least monitoring it. It's just something definitely you want to take into consideration. I seem to have made a typo even on my show notes here, where I'm going to run over the stuff in the description and check for typos on published work, but I'm not going to be checking on my show notes, as I can just usually run with it. This is a result of that. create content and consume it in a balanced fashion. Do it responsibly, guys. Alright, I have on the notes here some attitude that I really want, a sentiment and attitude towards my personal self here that I'd love to share with you. So I had recently done a creating a podcast challenge where I wanted to hit a goal of, let me set this goal, and I like to do that. I like to set goals from time to time, but I didn't follow through with it. So because I didn't follow through with it, I have this realization. And I look at, well, most of the music that I'm making right now and most of the content and how I'm describing it, where I'm creating a podcast challenge or setting any goal really at all and then not following through with it, rewarding myself no matter what the outcome is and celebrating in some way and then calling that avant-garde. That's rubbish. That's a rubbish attitude to have. I think it's exclusive to a certain group of people, but where you could put them in a box if you want and call these people this and call those people that. You could call those people that certain thing. I don't think it matters much what you call it. It's so much as if you change it at some point in time. Where if I create a podcast challenge and I want to do a certain amount of podcasts by a certain day, don't do it. Reward myself anyway, no matter what the outcome is, because my attitude comes out like this. I say to myself, oh, well, that's fine. It's the thought that counts, or it's the effort that counts, or all you had to do is try, or some rubbish like that. It's just not good, especially when I attach a label to it, or attach a certain style to it. That's not to say that, like, everybody should be this perfect machine or something, but listen to what I'm saying. Okay, you can't put out shit, do a shitty job, and then reward yourself and call it okay, and then call it, just hide under the label of some name or genre or something, and then say that that's what that is. It's just rubbish. I'm not even gonna say it's lazy, because I can't say it's lazy actually, considering how hard I worked anyway. But it is a bunch of bullshit, that's for sure. So, other than that, I have to move on, because this is going to start getting my gillops all in the gullet. One of the things that I want to make sure that I express too in this episode is the cash tag available on my X, and the money that you give me goes towards getting better equipment and keeping the show going. Because creating online content alone is a difficult job, especially when you're not earning income from it. I am currently not earning income from it, so it's making everything far more difficult. Not that I'm complaining, not that I have a problem with it, but it's just me checking in with you guys on the status of that, and that is how it's going right now. As for the podcast challenge thing that I was just talking about, I'm actually six podcasts behind as of either yesterday or the day before. So that would mean I'm like 8 episodes behind and doing a podcast. I mean, it's ridiculous to even set the goal. But to realistically break this down and talk about it, that's going to be the only way I'm going to work through it. So having 8 episodes to do in 8 days sort of thing, as the podcast challenge on my calendar that as I have it marked, ends this Friday. So that's 2 days from now. And I'm, second of all, late one day on the premiere of this episode. It's a mess. It's a really big hot mess. It will be cleared up after this episode, and it will be cleared up very soon. But the only thing that I'm gonna have to do now is what am I gonna do with that whole part of me that's been sitting worried sick all the time, whether I follow through with my challenges and goals, as it just kind of like burns a big hole in my aura, so to speak, and has nowhere to go now. Now it's just like been sitting here worrying about all this stuff. When I do have my ducks in a row and have everything working like a well-oiled machine the way I want it to, where does all this stuff go? Well, I can share the experiences on here. I can share it in person with other podcasters and artists. I can meet these other people at open mics. on Twitch streams. I've seemed to have found some local bands that make the same genre through just simply looking, and having me connect with all these guys is going to be really big. So, as and the same note as that, still in the same literal topic of that, before I get into the closing things I have in my notes, which are album birthdays and personal birthdays, as well as personal announcements. I even cropped up and piled on some more work and some more deadlines and more challenges when I didn't follow through with the first couple, by telling myself just last night that I have 60 days to learn an album, the guitar and the vocals, and then I even had the nerve to write guitar and vocals. I've got some nerve. I really have some nerve to just sit there, keep setting the pace that I don't follow through with and don't respond to, and just keep going anyway. This is borderline just absolute madness. But I work with it. I make it work somehow. So, all that said, guys, I'd like to wrap the whole thing up in a nice, pretty little package in a nutshell. Balance out your creating, and your consuming. Don't set the bar too high. Don't shoot for the moon every single time. And if first you don't succeed, continue trying all the time. And let's get into birthdays here. So, upcoming birthdays, we have, as I mentioned, next month I'll do a reminder on a few Cradle of Filth albums. We have a birthday for Ashes of the Wake by Lamb of God. As I have it written in my calendar, I could be mistaken. And there's a video too I want to give a shout out to with Lacuna Coil, featuring Randy Bly from Lamb of God. That has a pretty good song, pretty good video, pretty good music there that I want you guys to check out. I just don't know if I'm accurate on this Ashes of the Wake, but it is 20 years. I know that it's been 20 years since that album came out, and that is actually my favorite album. I don't know if it's even... I thought there already was a 20th anniversary edition, but last winter that 20th anniversary edition just came out. Anyway, it's booming all over my email newsletter. It's all over all the other news podcasts, and it's all over YouTube, as well as the social medias. So make sure you check those out. I have Freddie Mercury from Queen. His birthday is coming up. And I have a premiere on a art platform with some of my old art work that has some very trippy, very crazy, schizophrenic style stuff. And then I have the luxury and the honor and the duty of adding in all the tags myself so people could find these, as I can't put money into it if I'm not making any money back from it. So until I start getting donations, I can't start putting in money for paid promotional or anything like that. As I'm sure that you wouldn't either. You as the listener also, if you happen to have your own platforms and your own podcasts, I would hope that you do the same. So adding in all the stuff manually is what I'm currently at with stuff, and it's very time consuming but quite rewarding, and a very big learning experience where I can truly find how to really describe my stuff, if I can remember any of it when the time comes and I meet somebody on the street and they ask me, what is this about? And then I have to pull up and dig in my mental archives and say to myself, well, it's about this, 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 and this, and then have no freaking interest in doing so. Probably won't happen because I won't have any interest in doing so. All I'm gonna want to do by the end of so much work for free is just really wind down and have a drink at the pub or something like that. So going to these open mics is gonna be big on, something's just trying to damper my courage here, damper my ambition with these challenges that don't get followed through with. but it certainly is not. It's not going to work. I mean, I'm going to go find some other bar to hang out at with the open mics if there aren't any open mics near me. There used to be an open mic right on my block, and now there isn't. It just isn't there at all anymore. So all I have to do now is just travel a little bit farther. Go ahead, get myself onto those open mics and networking again with other artists, and be good to go. But that podcast challenge crap's got to go. And I mean, I write down this stuff in the show notes, and then I get the podcast ready, and then I have it all loaded up and ready, locked and loaded, ready in the chamber here for the recording of the episode. And then, doing it and keeping up to that pace. This is a lot of information. This is a lot of stuff to share. There's a lot of stuff a lot of people will be interested in hearing. And then doing it every single day, like for 8 days in a row, that's ridiculous. That's just out of control. That's whack. That's whack. So anyway, I do want you guys to check out the art premiere. I am going to premiere the art collections that I have ready for you on September 6th of this year, 2024. I just did a live stream of my poetry performance on Twitch. Those videos on Twitch are available for 2 or 3 weeks, I believe, might even be 1 month, before they're taken down. So those live streams, don't want to miss them. I share the link to those on my X if you're following me on X. I actually did an announcement for that on my Instagram, on my story, and on the feed. These new promo tracks are what I'm excited about. These new promo tracks that I have here for these this double EP release is basically what I'm featuring on this episode, where you just heard the Abyss, the opening up of the episode, and we're gonna close it off with the perfect, because the title of the song is the title of the podcast. So what better way to end this show than with a little bit of some juicy, heavy, extreme metal for your ass. As for these promo tracks, these double EPs, these are all just free stuff that you go on. I just added all the tags and everything. So, drop your comments, drop your likes, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Hit up the description for my Linktree with all the links. And let's hear it. This has been, Mickey GemInEye. This has been the Vault of Doom podcast, and this is one of my recent promo releases. This is Doom.